Close the door. Okay, you are live. Okay, we'll call the work session to order. I believe we have a review and discussion of financial software package. Yes, as you may recall, we've been using the same financial software since the 1990s. It's generally worked well for us and is still in use by multiple localities in Virginia. However, a general industry standard is to reevaluate financial software packages at least every 20 years or so, and it's been longer than that. So thus, in August 2021, the board approved issuance of an RFP for evaluation of the county's financial management software. And we've attached a copy of the RFP for your reference in your package. Virtual IT based in Moneta won the proposal, has been working on the assessment this spring and summer. They've done they have a great deal of experience in this type of work and are currently in varying stages of similar projects in localities ranging from, and Randy, please correct me if I'm wrong, Amherst to Bedford to Albemarle, and some others you might be able to mention when you come up. But to ensure that they have a full picture of our needs, they conducted interviews of key departments and individuals who use our financial software. And additionally, they looked at other functions which either are or could be interfaced with our financial software, such as building and zoning permitting, the Rockbridge County Public Schools, and real estate assessment. Virtual IT's chief technologist, Randy Grubb, is with us tonight. He's been working with us on this project as our central point of contact to provide an overview of the assessment so far, and findings, options for the county to consider, and a recommended course of action. And of course, in addition to staff, Ms. Travato and Commissioner of Revenue David Weitzel and Brooke are with us this evening to help answer any questions that you might have. It's our hope to answer any questions you might have and ultimately receive direction from the board on the course ahead. And of course, a key player in this is Stefan Yannick, who is under the weather, but is soldiering on and participating via Zoom. And he's actually going to present the document as Randy goes over it. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Randy for an overview, and then we'll go from there. And Stefan, if you want to share your screen.
Will do.
All right, great. Well, thanks for having me this evening. I appreciate it. So the document you have is a summary of an assessment report, and I'm going to start on page 3. So page 3 is just kind of an overview and just kind of restates what Spencer mentioned, that the county is running a product called BAI. It's a piece of software from Brighton Associates. They're headquartered in Tennessee, and has been running this piece of software since the 90s. So the county has gotten an amazing return on investment out of that software. And there's just kind of a summary of the modules here, but it's primarily the financials. Also, it's used heavily by the commissioner's office and the treasurer's office. And it's the platform that's used to handle your financial accounting as well as payroll. As Spencer mentioned, just kind of a summary on that page. These are the departments that I met with as a part of the assessment. I met with the commissioner, the treasurer. I met with the different people that are in finance responsible for HR and payroll. I met with human resources. I met also with community development and the building department, they were not a part of the original RFP in terms of departments to look at. But as we started to dig in we found that there was probably definitely a need there. And so we went ahead and we met with them to understand, what that need may be. So we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail. I also met with information technology to really kind of understand the technology platform and kind of your environment here in Rockbridge County, because that has a sizable impact on the strategy going forward. And then I also met with Rockbridge County Public Schools. So those were the groups that were involved in what we call discovery to collect information in terms of where things stand with your financial system platform.
Mr. Graham, who was the representative from the schools that you met with?
David Daniels. Yeah. And actually I met with David, and then I also met with several folks that are a part of his team as well that are responsible for different functions within the school system. And certainly as we progress along, don't hesitate to stop me and ask questions. That's why I'm here. So feel free to do so. So I'm going to move ahead on page 4, which is a summary of the assessment. There's several points in here that is really just information that I felt that was germane to your path forward. So the first item there, let me just say that, the BAI system is a very solid system. It has been here for years. The county has grown with the software and grown with the vendor. And, I run into BAI in a lot of situations. As Spencer mentioned, I'm involved with a number of localities. I've been doing this for about 25 years. I was a state auditor, and then I became a consultant. And as Spencer mentioned, I'm leading similar initiatives for Albemarle County right now. Their project is about a $17 million project. And it involves a lot of different phases. I'm also doing the same thing with Amherst County right now. I've done the same thing with Bedford County. I'm working with Roanoke County right now. I'm working with Roanoke City. There's a lot of localities in the state of Virginia that I run into, and I've run into BAI a lot. Campbell County is another one. So it's been a solid platform. It's really done a great job for you all. With that said, there are a few things here that the folks that I met with really had needs and wants when it comes to a platform like this that it really doesn't do a great job of today. And so, these are things that are really limitations of BAI that other platforms would likely meet. Contemporary technology platform. So BAI has been around since the 90s, and the platform it's on is a technology, it used to be known as an AS400. It's now known as an I-Series, and that's an IBM platform. IBM's a great vendor as well, and that platform has been a solid hardware platform. The only challenge with that platform right now is it has some age on it, and IBM has not been very clear about what their direction is. So they could put out something tomorrow that said, they are going to discontinue that platform. There's no such language out there like that right now, but it is an unknown. And similar is the case with BAI, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. These other items, I'm just going to kind of go through them. Ability to calculate penalty and interest automatically, better titles and descriptions for accounts, a history of address changes, collections of revenue through a web payment interface. Right now today, you all do have the ability to collect payments online, but it's for a limited types of revenue. Ability to attach documents to a taxpayer record and store documents. Seamless payment processor interface that would support your electronic and online payments. And kind of along with that is, a payment processor that conforms to PCI standards, which are the security standards for online payment processing, which we all know is extremely important in today's world. Ability to work in multiple years at the same time, no need for a monthly, yearly close process. Most contemporary systems just allow you to continue on with the system without having to do what I would call a hard close. And then a robust interface for DMV and personal property. So those were some of the things that were really on the wish list for the folks that I met with that BAI either doesn't do today or it doesn't do a great job of it. The second item, the Commissioner's Office uses Laserfish to scan taxpayer documents and store them electronically, which is a great tool. Unfortunately, the Commissioner's Office is the only office that has access to that information. And so one of the desires was that there would be a system that for example, the treasurer and the commissioner could both have access to the same documents and see information, as well as other departments that may have a need to see it as well. The third bullet there, one of the things that BAI is really not known for is its human resource system. Today, right now, BAI is really a payroll system. It is not a human resource system. And so most of the human resource processes that are handled in the county are handled manually, or they're handled on Excel spreadsheets or Word documents. So there really is no HR system today. There's only a payroll system. So two things that you would look for in a contemporary HR system. You would look for employee self-service, where employees can log on. You know, they could do things like select benefits, they could change their address, a lot of those types of things. The other thing is that they could get their pay stubs. So today they can get their pay stubs through BAI. That is functionality that is in there today, but they don't have any way to do any HR types of functions. They can't go in and add dependents. They can't go in and do anything that you would expect to be able to do from an HR perspective. The other function that you really look for is you look for something called manager self-service. And in a manager self-service environment, it would basically empower managers in the departments to initiate HR actions electronically through the system, and then have them flow through their approval path, and then flow up to HR and ultimately possibly to the county administrator for approval, without having to deal with paper or manual processes. So those are two big things that you typically see in a modern HR system for the most part. Any questions before I continue on? Okay. So the fourth item there relates to community development and the building department. And so today, community development doesn't have any software. They manage the entire community development process with Excel spreadsheets, or they have files that are stored either physically. So there's a whole row of file cabinets upstairs, or they may have some documents stored electronically in a folder structure. So they really have no software today. That is not the norm for community development. You typically see community development departments have software that allows them to track different types of permit applications, have it flow through the process, be able to track approvals, and then be able to go back and usually if you have a piece of property, there's never just one thing that happens with it. There's always many things that happen to it. And so today they really have, it's a manual process for them to go back and look to see what happened with a piece of property, to figure out if there's any restrictions on the property and that type of thing. So it's really a challenge for them today. The other thing is that you really typically see community development in the building department very tightly integrated together. And here it's two departments, which is really not a problem. The building department and community development seem to work very well together. And because I met with the two department heads, and they figured it out. They work well together, and they figured out a way to work together. The building department does have a piece of software that they use to issue building permits, but it is quite old and it has issues. And so there's definitely an opportunity here to bring a piece of software into the county that would help those two departments. why are we talking about community development? I thought we were talking about a financial system. So the reason is because typically associated with community development is fees, and building department is fees. And ultimately what happens today is they end up walking down the hall to the treasurer, and they end up giving the treasurer money, and the treasurer really doesn't have any visibility into what they're paying for. So the benefit of a community development and building application that would be integrated into the financial system would be that everybody would be seeing the same information that they needed to see, and it would all be tied closely together, and it would eliminate a lot of manual processes today. It would also allow community development in the building department to accept application fees online, which I think would be desirable to the residents of Rockbridge County. So moving on to page 5. So 5 and 6 both relate to Rockbridge County Public Schools. And so the school's finance department has their own finance system. However, they rely heavily on the county for accounts payable. So they rely on the county to pay their bills, and they rely on the county to run their payroll. And unfortunately, the system that the county has, BAI, did not meet the school's needs. And primarily it's related to the types of information that they need to manage and see. For example, location is extremely important to schools. It drives their annual school report, and they had limitations with BAI and being able to get the information they needed. So they implemented what I would call a shadow financial system. And they literally take information and manually enter information into their financial system, so that the same information that's in BAI is also in their financial system. So they're redundant financial systems, and theirs is basically a glorified report writer, because they can't really generate transactions out of it. It is literally a glorified report writer. So there's an opportunity there for the county and the schools to partner together. And, if the choice is to go out and acquire a new system, then certainly you all would want to look for something that would meet both organizations' needs, so that there are not these two separate systems. And it would eliminate enormous amounts of manual work. It would improve information, and ultimately everybody would just work better together.
Would the new system interface with the school system?
Yes. And so
would the school system have to change systems? I mean, the school system, I know because I used to be on the school board, was Bright just did not work anymore for the school system. And there was too many, just like you're talking about, spreadsheets and all this kind of stuff. It was just a mess. And to gain better institutional knowledge and a system that would handle everything, that's the reason they went to the new system.
Right.
And when they bought the system, it was supposed to interface with the county system. However, the company that sold them that apparently lied, and it has never interfaced. So my question is, would the school system have to change systems again, or is there something that when we look at it, we can find something that will interface with their system?
I got the feeling that they were very interested in being with the county and the county's decision to, if the county goes out to acquire a new system, that they would be willing to use that system as well, and they would retire their existing system. And it is possible, if the county chose a system, for example, that they weren't interested in using, which I do not think would be the case, and I would not recommend that. It would be possible to interface the county system with the school system. The reason that probably wasn't done, it's possible. The reason it probably wasn't done is probably a resource issue, because neither organization has a lot of IT, extra IT headcount to work on projects that are complex like that, and the vendors are going to charge you to create that interface. So it's possible to make those two things talk together. It just for whatever reason was never done, I guess. nobody had the appetite to probably make that happen. But it would benefit everyone involved. And, most of my clients, where, the schools in the county, they are on one financial system together. And there's, as well as I mean, the way that the Code of Virginia is set up and the way that schools and counties are intermixed, the county, for example, has to give the school money. And so it's very easy to go in and do a journal entry and transfer money into the school's accounts versus having to handle it on paper. Budget creation now is totally manual. Budget creation, the school develops their budget, then they give it to finance here, and finance manually keys it into BAI so that their budget's available. And so the process is just extremely painful for everybody involved. And we talked about the HR system as well. And so the financial system would be one piece where the schools and the county would have an opportunity to work together. The other opportunity would be on the HR payroll side, because today the school has other systems that they need to support HR, timekeeping, and things of that nature, because the county system, BAI, is not capable of doing it. Implementing a system with a robust HR payroll type of module then would provide opportunity for the school system to possibly look at some of the systems that they're using, and they actually could discontinue using those and begin using this new system that we're talking about, and once again improve the process greatly, because the handoff between the schools and the county for payroll is a very manual process in terms of getting time records and everything else from the school to the county so that payroll can be run. Very manual process today. And, one of the things that concern schools and counties is, having schools and counties all, can we all get along in the same system? And luckily, it's always great to get along, but a lot of the new systems today, it would be configured so that the schools could have their own chart of accounts, the county could have their own chart of accounts, and the touch points could be controlled. And so that everybody would get along, but yet everybody could have their own environments that they wanted to work in. And they could, if the school doesn't want the county to see things in their system, that works fine, and vice versa. So that's a very doable and realistic situation. The seventh item here, the strategic outlook for BAI and the appraisal system, which is called CAMERA, is on the same piece of hardware. So it's on the IBM iSeries platform. The company that where the appraisal software comes from, CAMERA, it comes from a company called Stonebridge Technologies. That company's fate is somewhat unknown. They've had some issues. I believe that they had some turnover with the ownership of the company, so we're not sure what's going on with them right now. BAI is another company that my greatest concern with BAI is really not the software and its ability to do the job, because it's done the job for you all since 1990. It's very difficult to figure out what BAI's strategic direction is as a company. And I did work for Campbell County a couple of years ago, and so I felt like I needed to see these people and talk to them. So I went to Tennessee, and Tony Bright is the owner of BAI. And he is the sole owner. And Tony is an avid zookeeper. So when you pull into their headquarters, you see giraffes and you see elephants, and I thought I was in the wrong place. But above the zoo office is the offices for BAI. And they've run this company successfully for many, many years. My only complaint with Tony is that we've asked for a couple of years for him to produce a letter that identifies BAI's strategic direction as a company. What are they going to do? How long does he plan on being in business? He's lost some key resources lately. and he has not produced that strategy. And, once again, most, probably 98% of their customers are all happy customers. It's just that fear of what might be that, and it's making a number of localities look at this situation right now. So that is the challenge with BAI right now. Number 8. So BAI is a it's circa 1980s technology. And so, most of the people that the county hires today, if they have recently come out of school, they're going to have never seen anything like it before. They're the mouse generation. They want to point and click and touch and everything. You can't do that with BAI. So there's a definite training and learning curve when it comes to using the platform. Number 9 there, I mentioned the iSeries platform, and once again, kind of a similar situation. There's no published strategy from IBM in terms of the iSeries platform. Nobody knows what's really going to happen to it. The 10th item there, as I mentioned, there are several localities right now that are working to replace BAI. And so just to give you an idea, the number of vendors that would meet your needs is relatively small. You can probably count them on one hand. I will tell you, for Amherst County, when we put out an RFP extremely similar to yours, we got 4 proposals in terms of software companies that can do what you need to do in the state of Virginia. And so implementation costs for the new system that we're looking at can be anywhere from $120,000 up to $680,000. And that's just the implementation cost. And then your yearly recurring expense would range from anywhere from $40,000 to $120,000. Right now, today, you pay about $45,000 a year for BAI. So, if you ended up with a piece of software that was on the lower end of that, you would be about the same place you are today. One factor in that decision, you leased the hardware that you have today, and you leased it in 2019, I believe. That hardware will have to be replaced, and so there's going to be that recurring cost. If you keep BAI, you're always going to have that recurring cost. I can tell you that if you were to put out an RFP today, it would be my recommendation that you actually pay the vendor to host the software, or, in today's terms, it would be cloud hosted. So it would be hosted by the vendor, and you would be out of the business of hosting the hardware. Not only do you get out of the business of hosting hardware, but you don't have to replace it anymore. And then you're not responsible for disaster recovery, which finding an iSeries box to put back in place if something happened to yours is not a trivial task. And so that's an important consideration. Any question on any of those 10 points before we move on to the next section?
With some of the interfaces that you're talking about, like HR and different things, is it better or a better ROI the more parties you have involved in it? I mean, you talked about the schools. I'm thinking the sheriff's office, jail, any other agencies that we're the fiscal agent for. Would it be better for all of them to move to this type of platform as far as an ROI for us?
That would depend. And for example, I'm not in terms of like public safety, kind of as a whole, you all do their payroll and everything. So they don't have an alternate system today. So there's no cost to be avoided there. The school's a different story because they pay maintenance on Tyler Munis. And so if you all were to end up with the same system, then that maintenance cost for Tyler Munis would go away. So your return on investment would definitely go up. And the thing with this type of investment, it used to be that these types of investments, they end up on the balance sheet because you end up with assets. Not anymore. Today, this is a cost. It's just like, electricity and lights and water. You really have to treat these things more of a service in the current state, so that the money ends up in your general fund ultimately year after year to run these systems, instead of having an asset on your balance sheet that just becomes obsolete. So long answer to a short question. Definitely the schools would increase the ROI. As far as some of these other, you're doing for them already. They don't have, I can't think of all the organizations that you're fiscal agents for, but you're doing their payroll, you're doing their AP, or at least most of it. So they would just be using the system that you all bought. And they don't, a lot of them don't even log into the system today. A lot of them just send information via email, and then payroll either enters the information or AP enters the information. They never even touch the system to begin with.
And with a new system like that, you talked about the iCloud storage as a good component. Is there also some sort of mechanism for training for our employees? I mean, obviously, a change in system is going to be difficult. Change is always difficult. But
Absolutely.
Once you get through that and you bring on new employees or new people that will be processing within the system, is there some sort of mechanism for training those people, or is it all internally here?
No, that's something that, so there's two pieces to that. So that's certainly something that, if we put out an RFP, we're going to ask the vendor provide a training plan, and we're going to ask them to provide training as a part of the implementation. But the second piece of that is the organizations that I see being extremely successful with these types of projects is that they have someone on their staff that is as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable, than all of the users, so that the users have someone to come to, and there's an advocate internally that they can work with. And I think that's part of the long-term plan here, is to, have a role like that. That is critical to a project like this. And so the reason that's important is because, the implementer may do the initial training and it may get your current staff on board. But then, as you bring new staff after the implementation is complete, there still needs to be someone that can, shepherd new employees through training and make sure they are trained and understand how to use the system as well. So it's really a combination of those two things.
Mr. Grubb, while we're off on all this, Mr. McDaniel addressed what was sort of my first concern is, are we going to host it ourselves, or are we going to go into a cloud-based system? Yeah. Then that sort of drives who can even answer the RFP, or how you affect what you're trying to do. So and personally, I think the cloud-based is the way to go for some of the reasons that you mentioned. The other piece of that I wanted to ask about was the server room that we have. Well, the office that Stefan has to sit in that serves as a server room, pun intended, that isn't good. I mean, in a previous version of the document, it's pointed out there's no generator, there's no backup, so if we go to a cloud system, does that room go away?
It doesn't go away, because even organizations that are 100% cloud-based, and I will tell you, my opinion is, don't sit on the fence. You either need to go one way or the other, because if you want to be, half of your systems are cloud-based and half of them are on premise, then you're getting no advantage of being in the cloud at all, because you're still maintaining the same infrastructure. And I may have a little bit of different discussion if we were talking about CAD and public safety, but that's a whole other discussion.
It is.
It would still exist, but its footprint would be much smaller, and the requirements of the room would be much less. It would need to hold some of your core networking components, because the network can't be cloud-based. You still got to have the network to connect all the people together. So it would still house a lot of those components. There are a minimal number of servers in there, and all of them, and Stefan is already, he is looking at strategically what to do with the services running on those servers. a high percentage of what's on those servers today would likely belong in the cloud. So that footprint will go
Significantly
down.
reduced.
Definitely. That I-series box is your biggest risk.
Don't
Like I
forget the tape
said,
drive.
And I will just add to that we have put in place a new backup disaster recovery system for the IBM, but that is also another additional cost that should be considered. But it is now being where we do have what's called virtual tape backups as opposed to physical tape backups. So we do have offsite location where backups are shot to every single night at the Rana data center. But I could, basically we're using a specific type of device that can actually back up that IBM server. So it's also kind of specialized hardware that we would no longer need to maintain.
And that's the challenge with disaster recovery for the I-series is, Stefan talks about having the backup, but we got to have something to put it on if something happens in that room. And so, acquiring that box, it's I don't even know what the timeline would be. I mean, it would be weeks probably.
I'd have to talk to our account rep, Billy, but I think usually, yeah, I don't know exactly how long it would take for them to get it to us, but I think he would definitely do everything he could to get us one as quickly as possible. I can at least attest to that.
You stated that the new system would cut down on a lot of manual data entry. Can you give me an example of what we're talking about?
One of the examples that is probably the most significant to me was the school's budget, because the school actually develops their own budget in their system, and then they give it to the county, and finance in the county takes that budget and keys in all of the numbers from the school's budget. So that would be one example of manual processes.
And we do that as well.
Okay, yeah, for the county's budget as well.
All in Excel.
Yeah.
And then it's redone and.
Another example could be easier web access for folks. If all these forms we're doing yearly, real estate, land use, personal property, business personal property, a lot of that could be done on a web-based form, which as that form is completed, it's sent through a workflow to a next employee who says, yep, this looks good. And then that updates the system rather than taking a document. Oh, I need to read through the pages and enter all of that information.
Another example is today your accounts payable function is accounts payable can work in two ways. Accounts payable can be centralized or it can be decentralized. For you all, it is very centralized. All accounts payable runs through one person, and literally one person. And so everything for the county and the schools ends up coming to that person, and then she keys in your invoices to pay your bills. So that's a centralized accounts payable model. A decentralized model would mean that all those departments would then put in their own invoices into the system. And so they would get the bills, they would scan the bill into the system, it would be attached to the system, and then your accounts payable folks would just pay the bills. They wouldn't be handling the documents multiple times again to actually use as a source to put into the system. And so that's an example of a decentralized versus centralized type of AP model. Payroll is similar. Time collection for payroll, it happens in a similar manner.
Would the schools then be doing their own payroll instead of the county's office?
I think the schools like the county running their payroll.
Well, I guess.
I think that would definitely be a great discussion to have. And so the other thing that goes along with payroll. So payroll, payroll is broken down into really two pieces. One is what is known as time to gross, and the other is gross to net. So the time to gross piece is where you're putting time into the system, and then it's calculating based on pay rates, and it's creating a gross amount. And then from the gross amount comes, of course, your deductions and your taxes. So the piece that would make me nervous about the schools doing their own payroll would be the submission of the taxes. Because right now that's all handled through finance. Mm-hmm. And so that there would have to be a discussion about that. And so that would be something new for the school to have to learn that they're not familiar with. And so that would be my only concern. There's some organizations where the school runs their payroll soup to nuts, and then the county, and there's others where the county and the schools work closely together, and it kind of works like it's working here today. It makes me nervous today because your head counts are very low here. And so, you know, there's a lot of, you know, dependence on single individuals for some of these key functions. And so I like the idea of kind of diversifying that, and, you know, the schools having their ability to do their own thing, and then the county can do their own thing. You know, the more people and the more shared knowledge you have, the less risk you have.
And may I add to that, the ability to support one another, because currently, speaking of the payroll, I probably spent about 2.5, 3 hours trying to come up with a solution for payroll, trying to create their report, because they couldn't get their report to print, and none of their IT staff, none of the school's IT staff can support anything at all with the IBM platform. So but I could not log into the machine to take a look at what she's looking at, because their IT admins have it blocked off where I could do a remote connection to take a look. So that's why it took extra long, was because we were having to, you know, go back and forth. So I was trying to figure out exactly what was going on, and we did get it resolved. But that's a small example of something that does occur on a fairly, you know, somewhat regular basis.
And that's a great point, because one of the opportunities you have when you do implement a new system is to look at your processes and really look at who's doing what and figure out if there's a better way to do it. And, you know, outside of the system, those roles and responsibilities, it's a great time to revisit that.
Is that part of the process? It seems like that would be best done before you actually settled on the direction you were headed.
So it's best, there's kind of a perfect point in time to do that. And so personally with me, that phase of the project I call ready the organization. And so there's two things that happen during that period. One is to look at processes. And, you know, behind this document, there's documents for each of these areas that I met with that have pretty much detail in terms of what's going on in there. And so there's a great start at doing some process re-engineering there. The other thing that happens in the ready the organization phase is to look at the staff, to figure out if we've got the right people to be able to have Rockbridge County be successful with a project of this size and cost. A lot of organizations are not prepared to step into a project like this, and they fail because of that. So the timing for that, you know, if you all were to make the decision that you wanted to move ahead and put an RFP on the street, there's going to be a period of time that we're waiting. And that period of time that we're waiting for, so we're going to be waiting for vendors to respond. We're going to be going through an evaluation process. You know, that you're talking probably a minimum of 90 to 120 days. That's a great time to work on business process work. Now, you can only go so far, because you do need to know, at least to some degree, what the capabilities of the system are that you're going to select. But to your point, there is definitely some of that work that could be done. For example, there could be a discussion about who's running payrolls, the school or the county. You know, that's the type of discussion, and the budget. You know, it's kind of crazy that the school can't put their own budget in the financial system today. And so those types of things, there's some low hanging fruit there that I think we could definitely make some progress on. All right, moving forward, section 4. So I'm going to move on to page 6. So from my perspective, you really have 3 options. One option is you could continue with BAI as it is. Once again, from my perspective, the biggest concern with BAI is just the long-term viability of that organization. Just that unknown is a little bit troublesome to me. Option 2 is to replace BAI And this says BAI with best of breed. So if you were to make the decision to put out an RFP, we could write the RFP in a couple of ways. So we're going to be asking for something that is a financial system, that is a tax billing system, that is compliant with Virginia law. We possibly would be asking for a system that would support HR payroll and community development. So that's a lot of stuff in one system. And the number of vendors that can do that are relatively small. The other option is that we could write the RFP so that we don't require that to be one vendor, that we could encourage vendors that are best of breed. You know, we may have a vendor that is great at community development and building, but they don't have a financial system. And so we could encourage vendors to work together, to partner, to bring a complete solution to the county. We would want to go through one vendor as a prime, because we don't want to have to deal with a bunch of different vendors. We really would like one contract and one vendor to deal with. And so that's kind of option 2A here is to put language in the RFP. I like doing that because it's all about options. You know, I'd like to see 10 proposals, because if I see 2, then we don't have very many choices. And so I like to see as many proposals as possible with as many options as possible. And so I would encourage, you know, if you all decide to do that, that we put language in there that we don't require all of that to be one vendor, that we want as much of that from one vendor as possible. But then if there's another vendor that can come to the table to bring part of that and they work together, that would be a more desirable option. The third option, which is kind of what I had talked about, was, you know, replace BAI with a single vendor. If we put an RFP out there like that, there's probably only one vendor in the state of Virginia that can give you a Virginia compliant system that will do everything that we're asking for. And so that really limits your choices. And of course, it's the
When you
most
say
expensive.
that, you mean it limits your price tag because there's only one. We're okay.
Yes. Yes.
If we're down to now talking about what we're asking for in the RFP, what we're asking the vendor to do, I have another question. You touched on it in a place, but talking about how the tax payments other than real estate and personal property online, part of this for me, beyond having technology do what it's supposed to do, which is work for you to stop all these manual processes that we're talking about, is provide a customer service experience for our citizens, so that they're not walking back and forth between the hall over there, nor is David and Betty. I wasn't sure from what I've heard so far that was a focus or part. Is that baked in here?
Oh, so let me tell you a little bit about the RFP process, and let me see if this answers your question. So if you all make the decision to go ahead with the RFP, so what would happen is that I would put together an RFP, and it would have a detailed set of requirements, and each of the departments that were a part of this effort initially would be involved in developing that RFP to make sure their needs were met. I would love to bring it to you all as well and make sure that your needs are met. And you know, if you have specific things that you want to make sure in there, I can tell you, I've been doing this a long time and I've written a lot of RFPs, and, you know, I would be surprised if there was something that I didn't already know about. You know, we want we want a very functional citizen portal. And, you know, my expectation, if I was a citizen of Rockbridge County, is that I'd want to be able to come in and pay my taxes. I'd want to be able to, you know, if there was a code compliance issue, I'd want to be able to log on and, you know, or pull up my phone and, you know, complain about Johnny next door that's got too many whatever horses or whatever. I would want to be able to log on and submit an application for a building permit for a deck for my house. I would want to be able to go in and schedule the inspections for that deck and have it electronically happen. I'd like to be able to get a text message from the building inspector, say, hey, your footers are not deep enough, back to the drawing board. So as a citizen, those, and I'd like to be able to go in and, pay any type of taxes that I owed Rockbridge County, whether it be personal property, whether it be real estate, whether it, if I'm a business, I want to be able to go in and pay for my business license online. That my expectation as a citizen would be that. And so that would be in this RFP.
Thank you. Can I ask a couple more? Or you
Sure.
have one day? I've got, I think, one more specific question, but I also wanted to ask the language a couple times used is phrase basic future state needs. It sounds like that the commissioner and the treasurer fortunately suggested these things. Is there some list of what those are somewhere? Is it some document that's driving that, or is this things they've learned with their amount of experience that they know works and needs to?
So I would say it's a combination, and you do have two constitutional officers and their staff that I enjoyed meeting with them and enjoyed their I enjoyed their professionalism and ability to do their job, because they're both really good at their jobs. I don't always run into that. And, but you all are blessed because you have both of that with both of them. So a lot of it came from them. I couldn't type fast enough when I was meeting with Betty because, I was about to run out of paper. Her laundry list of things that this thing better do is quite long. And, David and Brooke were, very similar. So, so part of it came from that. Part of it came from my knowledge as a consultant. And I've been working with local government for 25 years. I was a state auditor. I have a degree in accounting, and I also have a degree in information systems. And so, I know what the APA requires in terms of financial systems and what their requirements are. I've implemented payroll systems and HR systems, so I know what all those requirements are. So, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I've just been around a lot in all the right places to gather information. And so it comes from both of those things. It comes from a combination of their knowledge plus my knowledge as a consultant.
So did that generate a list of things?
So the documents that were created captured their business processes. And so the next step in the process is I've got a RFP template for what it looks like you all need, because I've done it a ton of times for other localities. So I've collected that over time. So then what we do is we take that template and then we take your requirements, and then I go in and I revisit the basic requirements and I customize them for things that were unique to Rockbridge County. And then the team that we have here would then look at them and they would say, nope, we don't need that. Or, hey, I don't see this in there. Can you add that? And that's, that RFP document is what we would bring back to you all, where you could make sure you look at it and make sure, things that are on your wish list would be met. So that's how all that comes together as a part of the RFP process.
Organic. That's the way it should be.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Last question, I think, although I'm full of them usually. There's some language then again also about staffing and FTEs. Following up, I think maybe on some of the conversation of in-house hosting, or cloud. Is there a direction that wouldn't require that FTE? In other words, would having cloud get rid of some of the stuff up there, allow Stefan to have time to do this other task instead of having to do those? Is that something worth trying to discuss, or is it, if we do anything, we've got to have more? So the staffing model is important. And, as I mentioned, as part of the organization is looking at what that staffing model needs to be. So I like a staffing model that has a combination of internal resources as well as contract resources. So this vendor that you would select, you're going to pay yearly support to that vendor. And for that, you're going to get support. And some vendors are going to be better than others. And so then the question then becomes, what can you get everything you need from them, or do you need more help? And I can tell you that the organizations that are
going to be the most successful with these projects are organizations that have some type of internal resource that is a super user type of person. If Betty has a problem and, she needs somebody to walk down the hall right now, it's kind of Stefan. Well, Stefan's never used BAI to do any of these functions. And so he doesn't, he's not an accountant. He's not a treasurer. He's not a commissioner. So it's very difficult for somebody like Stefan to be asked to answer questions that are functional in nature. And so I can tell you, I'm a big advocate of having somebody that is dedicated to business technology support. Stefan's great at all that stuff that he mentioned to you, that in terms of virtual tape libraries, he can talk all day about firewalls and servers and everything else, but that's not his sweet spot. And he has really got his plate full taking care of all that stuff. So I would tell you that, a new system probably comes along with another role that's going to be more of a business functional type person. The other thing too is, having that person that can work with both the county and the schools and really facilitate that relationship, it makes everything work better. There needs to be somebody like that.
In the readying organization, the roles and the tasks of each person might not necessarily generate another FTE. Yeah, I got you.
So can I add to that? So Stefan is the super user. He's the only user basically we've got, and that's not just for, and he has learned a great deal about BAI and how to figure out the problems and that type of thing. But he's also the super user on every other help desk thing that we've got. Is if you got a printer problem, it's Stefan. If you've got network problem, it's Stefan. It's everything Stefan. Now we did implement to the best we could a backup system where we have some external support, so we don't find ourselves in a absolute single point of failure. But I will say he is stretched very, very thin. And in implementation of a new software I think would likely require some additional help.
My comments were not a reflection on his.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
And just FYI, part of the statement of work that was signed with my company was this first phase, but then the county has the ability to continue to have my help through the implementation. So that is part of that contract that was signed. And that's something that's just something that I do. That's been my life for about the last 15 years, is implementing these systems. So there would be some help on that side.
So my request, and I know we're getting close to time, but our request is to get some guidance from the board, and specifically, there's a couple options you could choose. You could tell us to go back to the drawing board or come back with something different, or you could tell us to go ahead and start drafting an RFP for your review. And I think it's a good idea for you all to take a look at that. I don't think you all necessarily want to see every RFP that we do for some of the more mundane, but this would be a huge decision, and we want to make sure that you have visibility on it, and to specify very specifically what I believe Randy's saying is option 2A is the best of breed under one vendor, so that you don't have finger pointing back and forth, and you got one prime that is responsible for all the interfaces. And I understand what you're saying about the different options, option 2 and option 3, but is it not a way to draft the RFP so that we can see both? You said there's only one vendor that can provide option 3. Well, can we not see that along with the hybrid model?
Yes. And the language would be simple. The language would, if we just wanted option 3, we would have language in there that stated the vendor must provide all of these functions. The language with option 2A would be, we would encourage a vendor that can provide all these functions, but if if the vendor cannot, we would encourage the vendor to partner with other vendors so that together you can provide a comprehensive solution to the county. So that's the difference in the language. And so that latter language is the language that I would recommend, and I think is consistent with what Spencer's asking as well. That way we get our cake and eat it too. You know, if we get the one vendor that can do everything, fine. The other thing too is, you know, if we like the one vendor but we didn't want to bite it off and do it all at once, because we would not implement all this at one time. Let me just tell you, it would be phased. So it would be financials, tax billing, and then community development. It would be in that order. That's just the right way to do it. And so what would happen in that situation is then, you know, you wouldn't be paying for the whole thing year one. You'd only be paying for the modules that you had implemented at that point. And so your greatest cost, let's say it's a 3-year project, your greatest cost wouldn't be until year 3. And so it would stagger out the cost a little bit.
So in that case, I don't see necessarily the benefit in having one person, one vendor in charge of all of those processes. Right?
Well, it's really, you know, it's really from a contract perspective, you know, because if you do have multiple vendors providing solutions, and we need to make the community development system talk to the financial system, then we're having to deal with 2 vendors. So that's where the challenge is.
And something goes wrong.
There can be a lot of finger pointing from vendors saying it's not our problem, it's their problem. And no, it's not ours, it's theirs. And
All right.
that's, I think, the main thing you try to avoid with that.
How many jurisdictions do you have that are using your option 2 where you've got multiple vendors? And my question is where I'm going with that. What happens when you got one vendor and that vendor is not talking to the other vendor, and one says, well, the data stream is there. Their problem is they're not reading it, our data stream. Do you run into that problem, and do they work it out, or do you just end up hanging there with 2 softwares that won't talk to each other?
So I definitely have a lot of clients that do that, but they're different than Rockbridge County. They are people like Albemarle County. There are people like Roanoke County. Roanoke County has 2 IT staff that just support their tax billing system. And so the way you overcome that is, but you end up having your own technical staff to deal with those issues. You're not relying on the vendor. So I have very few localities the size of Rockbridge that would have disparate vendor systems, versus where, you know, right now today you have one vendor. And so that's the big difference.
Supervisor Day, that was also our aim in our discovery process, is so it's not to have this going on. Our contact is the prime vendor and say, look, you guys signed right here that you're going to make this work. It's your responsibility to get your sub to make you interface, whether you're interfacing with them or they're interfacing with you. I mean, that was our goal.
And it's not uncommon, you know, even large systems like N4 is a very large software vendor in the local government space and federal space. They use, you know, they're N4 as a company. They use Amazon Web Services for their cloud hosting. They use BSI for tax, but they have contracts with those other vendors to provide a consolidated service. So that is not out of the ordinary. But the difference would be that we would be the ones that would be putting the contract together along with those vendors to make that work. And that is a little unique in the local government space right now. But that doesn't make it the wrong answer.
You know, in the interest of time, is there support from the board for one or the other options that have been presented?
It sounded like we sort of came up with yet a new blend of two and 3. So I support the way he described it, you know, the language that he used to answer your question, Dave.
I would add, yeah. I mean, and I would ask, you know, we will write the RFP so that we bring the most options to the table for the county. The worst thing we can do is put language in there and we get one proposal.
Right.
So we want as many options as possible. And so I think what we would ask of you all is, you know, we'll bring, you know, if you make the decision to put the RFP out, we'll bring the RFP to you. So you know, ultimately you'll see what's going to go out. But I think what we're asking today is, you know, is support for you all, you know, do you feel this is the right decision for the county to put this RFP out to begin with? I think that is the fundamental question.
But I mean, you know, my fear, like I said, I know change is hard. I know it's a cost involved, but we have a limited staff. And we ask a lot of our staff, and it's a lot of individual knowledge there that, you know, hopefully nothing ever happens, but if someone leaves or someone gets in an accident or so, you know, it can really cause issues for not only our county business, but our citizens. So having a platform that, you know, anybody can get in and research and provides all the knowledge rather than a person having the knowledge, I think is beneficial. So in my mind, you know, I think we should move forward with the RFP. Do you need a motion or?
I
anything
don't
on
think
that?
we need a motion because I think what I'm hearing, what our plan is that we go forward in development, we will bring it back to you.
Okay.
That way we're sure, and we will continue to include the folks, you know, very specifically the treasurer, commissioner revenue. I know didn't have opportunity to ask questions on this, but we're going to continue that. And I encourage you, if you have any questions of them or anybody else, certainly.
I would encourage you to include superintendent of schools in those conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing is please move forward, bring an RFP back for us to look at.
Gotcha. Will do.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your information.
Thank you all. Great questions, and I appreciate your interaction. I usually don't get that much, and it's awesome when I do. So thank you.
And while we're at it, thank you to the Commissioner of Revenue, Treasurer, and all the, Chris, all the other departments for your input in this process as well.
Thank you.
We have a short recess, Mr. McDaniel.
Yeah, just a minute or two.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's be quick about it.
I usually am.
But do I need to do anything to the changes, or do you want me to ask to make them?
Thank you, Stefan, also.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
They were so long. What happened?
Okay. All right, we will call the July 25th, 2022 Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Do a quick roll call. Supervisor Lewis,
Present.
Supervisor Day,
Here.
Supervisor Ayers,
Here.
Supervisor Lyons,
Here.
and Supervisor McDaniel's present as well. We will now have a prayer for the board followed by a pledge of allegiance. Those attending are not required to participate, but if you'd like to join us, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we ask for your continued blessings of all that are present. We ask you to continue to bless the citizens of Rockbridge County and ask for special blessings for our first responders and law enforcement. Keep them safe in their duties. We ask that you give us the wisdom and the strength to make the best decisions for the county. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. We will do our best to try to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. The webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise your hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
Yes, Chairman, I would like to add the dedication or the consideration of the dedication of the old Rockbridge Middle School field to be added to that.
Do the board comments at the end of the
That
meeting?
would be lovely. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. And let's see here, recognitions and presentations. Chris, do you have somebody to introduce?
Sir, thank you for your time. I'm happy to introduce Viveka Hansen. She joined us on the 9th of this month, I believe, beginning of the month, as the administrative assistant for the Office of Community Development. And as you can imagine, she has hit the ground running.
Hi there, my name is Viveka Hansen. I just want to introduce myself to you all, and I look forward to working with you all in the future.
Thank you very much.
I know Chris is glad to have you. All right. Let's see here. Citizens' comments. Is there anybody signed up wishing to address the board?
Randy, can you check?
And I might add, if your comments are about one of the public hearings, please hold them till that time. All right. Is there anyone online wishing to address the board at this time?
I just checked it. There's not.
Any written comments need to be read into the minutes?
No, sir.
All right. Approval of the June 27th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review? Are there any changes, corrections, additions need to be made? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And chair votes yes as well. Next, we have the consideration of the county appropriation resolution. Ashton, have you got?
Yes, thank you. The total bills for the county this month is $924,936.71. There's no additional appropriations being requested at this time. We've received, we don't have any things from the schools for this month. The board packet or the FY20, the board book is done. Should have been provided a hard copy, and at the request of Supervisors Ayers and Lyons, we got you a digital copy. And that's also been posted online. The general fund preliminary would be pretty close. We have a pretty handsome surplus, as you see in that my report, and we'll need to work with the finance committee on bringing recommendations to the full board on what to do with that, those surplus funds. The other thing that has also come up that's we'll need to work with the finance committee and the schools on I received notice from DRA that we need to deplete our SNAP account. We have a little over $300,000. That's excess funds from a previous bond issuance. That is restricted to the schools capital because the bond was for one of the schools. I've talked preliminarily with or briefly with David Daniels, and has had a good idea to use that for the architect fees. Ms. Huffman put me in touch with our bond attorney, and he's a great resource on advising us how to legally spend those funds. And so when David Daniels gets back, we'll set up a meeting with us and the bond council. That way we have some more information to give to the finance committee and the full board.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution that's been presented?
So move.
Second.
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. Next, we have the resolution for support for the Vdot Smart Scale application for North Lee Highway Route 11 Pedestrian Improvements Project. Mr. Slayton.
Yes. At the June 14th, 2021 board meeting, Ms. Ann Cundy and Mr. Zach Beard, both with the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission, reported the final Route 11 pedestrian study that was completed in May of 2021. The limits of the study in from the current sidewalks, which essentially terminate at the College Square Shopping Center on the east side and slightly south of that on the west side, running up North Lee Highway. And the study goes to the Walmart Valley Pike area along Route 11. Since that time, the Office of Community Development has worked with the CSPDC staff to prepare an application for the current smart scale cycle for funding of a portion of the project. Aside from the individual localities, we have the ability as an individual locality to make smart scale applications. In conversation with Vdot and the CSPDC, both thought that this would be a better application coming from the CSPDC. So it's my understanding this is one of 4 applications that the smart scale that the Planning District Commission can submit. The applications for funding the sidewalk segments 1, 2, and 3 from Route 11 pedestrian study is successful. The sidewalks on both east and west side of Route 11 would be extended to the intersections of Greenhouse Road and Econo Lane. On July 21st, 2022, the city of Lexington adopted a resolution similar to what y'all have presented in front of you to support the application, and staff is also working with the Rockbridge County school system. In fact, we've had the letter of support from the superintendent, Dr. Philip Thompson, from the Rockbridge County school system, and we're currently working with VMI to obtain letters of support for the application. That would be aside from the 2 formal resolutions, one from the city of Lexington and hopefully one from the Board of Supervisors.
Is there any questions, discussion? Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
And second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well.
Thank
Thank you. Consideration of petroleum product delivery bid for FY 2023.
Yes, sir. We have, we bid this out. We received, this bid is actually broken out in 5 separate bids. But in this case, Holtzman was the lowest on all 5 locations and all fuel types. And so our recommendation is to approve the resolution awarding the petroleum contract for the current fiscal year to Holtzman.
Is there any questions, discussions from board on that?
In this current fuel environment, this is locked in, right? I mean, this is what they've committed to.
No, we do not lock in people. Our contracts do not lock people into a price. They bid on whatever so we can compare apples to apples, whatever the price was on July 13th. But no, we don't lock people. Our current process is not locking people into a fixed price.
But that's how it normally works. So we're not doing anything different than we've done in the past.
That's correct. I think that was a great question. I would like to revisit that next year.
When do we bid bulk oil?
What, excuse me,
When do we bid the bulk oil? I thought it was in the same.
you
control.
want that one?
You go ahead.
All right, so some of these have kind of dropped off because we don't use as much of them, like some of the lubricants. So I think that one actually dropped off of this one.
It's being done as a small purchase now.
Yeah, it's a small purchase, so it's not as big a contract. We get the best price.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. The settlement of Stinson versus Rockbridge County. What's up?
Chairman, members of the board. This is similar to the Bullock settlement. Mr. and Ms. Stinson purchased property at 220 Great North Mountain Drive in Goshen back in 2021, I believe it was. By the end of that year, they had filed a petition for correction of erroneous assessment. This property had been on the market for a number of years. It was assessed at $1,023,500. They obtained an appraisal at $785,000, and their purchase price was $650,000. So a great deal of discrepancy in the values. The county's assessor evaluated the information and agreed that the appraised value was an appropriate amount for the period of time that was being discussed. The Commissioner of Revenue has confirmed agreement. The Stinsons have accepted an offer to settle the litigation for a valuation of $785,000 from April 16, 2021, when they acquired it, through December 31st, 2022. They have paid taxes through June of this year, so that assessment would apply for that period of time, rendering a refund to them of $2,059.05, together with $78.48 in interest. Then they would have a reduced tax payment with the adjustment to value for the second half of this year. Thereafter, the new reassessment would apply. As I think I've mentioned before, we cannot, neither the Commissioner of Revenue nor the board can agree to adjustments to valuations of real property that are based on general reassessment. But we can, and it can only be done through a court order. So this request is to authorize me to stipulate values to the court for settlement of the case and to authorize the refund. And so that would be the requested motion included at the end of your report. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So any questions, any discussion? Or a motion to approve the resolution as presented? So moved. Second.
Second.
All right, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well.
Thank you.
All right, we have a couple of appointments, the Railroad Board of Directors, the unexpired term for Mr. Henney. Traditionally, the railroad seats are appointed by district, and the open seat in the net is for the Natural Bridge District. As this is my district, I've reached out and received confirmation from a resident there, Mr. Page Owens, that he's willing to serve should the board appoint him. The only caveat is due to his schedule, he's not able to start until October, and at which point he'd be able to dedicate the necessary time to the board commitment. I'd request that the board allow the seat to remain open until Mr. Owens is available for service. Is there any questions?
It's good to me.
Let's see here. The Planning Commission,
Should we vote on, do we need to?
I don't believe the application's
Not
been
it.
received yet.
Okay, not at this, okay. Sorry. I
So hopefully we'll have
want to lose
that.
track of that, you know, I know Mr. Owens and that's good.
Mr. Day, did you have a question?
Did y'all receive an email from Joy Jones?
Yes,
We do.
I responded that we already had a person in place.
Okay.
Let's see here, Planning Commission replacement for Ms. Hines. Term expires 5/11/2026. This appointment is for Buffalo District. And Ms. Ayers, have you received an applicant for that?
We've received Robert Kramer's application, correct? And I am thrilled to have him. He's been, as most of you know, he sits and listens to the county's business every meeting. So it will my honor that he would like to serve on the Planning Commission. So
Good deal. So is there a motion to appoint Mr. Kramer for that position?
yes, so moved.
And second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion by anybody?
Mr. Kramer, do you intend to continue on the library board as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just didn't know if we need to start looking for something for that too. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
and chair votes yes as well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We have the Planning Commission replacement for Mr. Alphen. Term expires January 28th, 2024. I believe is this Walker's Creek District?
It is, sir. Yes, sir. I'm very close. It's refreshing to have some interest, but I'm sorting through and talking to folks. Don't have a commitment quite yet, but
Okay.
I expect it soon.
Okay. Let's see here. We have the EDA replacement for Mr. Patterson. Term expires April 10th, 2025. We have received an application from Stacy Stevens of the Walker's Creek District. I believe Mr. Stevens would be a valuable resource to the EDA. Is there any questions or comments about that?
No, I agree. I think it would be very good.
Is there a motion?
There he is. And also just to point out, while he's a musician, many of us have heard him that way. He's also taken time to audit the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development meetings. So, and has lots of good questions and thoughts. So like Mr. Kramer, I'm proud we have somebody who's taken an interest. So absolutely move to approve Mr. Stevens be appointed.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
and Mr. Day?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well. Let's see here. You've received the monthly staff reports. Is there any questions or concerns about those?
I just had a thought, looking at the statistics, I'm mindful that I'm thankful we have a convenience center in Goshen. They seem to have a need to dispose of tires and bulky items. And speaking to the convenience center attendants there, everything's running smoothly and we appreciate the support. So I move we approve all the reports with thanks.
Is there a second to that?
Second?
Okay, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well. Let's see here. We'll skip the public hearing piece. Board comments. Would you like to talk about the
sure.
Rockbridge Middle School?
Sure. Recently at our RORO board meeting, we discussed the old Rockbridge Middle School ball field. That's currently Rivermont is the school there. In previous years, we've referred to it to whatever entity occupied the building. Other fields we use, such as Brubaker, bear the name of people who have contributed greatly to our community. So on behalf of the RORO board, I'm respectfully requesting that the name be named Mace Field in honor of Jerry R. Mace. Mr. Mace was born in 1939, died in 2017. He graduated from W&L with a major in Spanish and history. He was a Rockbridge County teacher from 1963 to 1994. He taught Spanish, government, and U.S. history. He coached track, JV, and varsity football, JV basketball, JV, and varsity baseball for 25 years. You get the gist. He lived in Fairfield his entire life and was married to Barbara for 53 years. And he has two sons, Corey and, or has two sons, Corey and Chris. He's a member of he was a member of the Spring Valley Baptist Church for 47 years and also active in the Fairfield Ruritans. In the words of the RORO board president, Joey Jones, Jerry Mace dedicated his entire life to the community of Fairfield, especially to our students at Rockbridge High School. Mr. Mace was a very humble person who was motivated deeply by helping students and student athletes become a better version of themselves. So with that, I would ask that you would consider naming the ball field.
Is that a motion?
So I would.
You're-
Currently, it sits in Walker's Creek District. Bob and I fought over who would the nomination. We both know Mr. Mace and his boys. And it's I think it's a great honor and a good thing to do. So I would move we appropriately name the baseball field there at Mace Field.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion, concerns, comments? I don't think you'd find a better gentleman.
Made me run a lot of laps, ran it.
Oh,
Deserving now.
thank you very much,
All right,
gentlemen.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons. Yes. Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. All right, now it's 6 o'clock, so it's time for public hearings. We'll start out with the voting precinct changes. Mr. Suter?
Yes, this is the final step in the 2021-22 redistricting process. It has been a job, but essentially the board has already done the heavy lifting and also the electoral board by submitting a redistricting plan to the Attorney General's office, to which we received a notice of no objections, that thus essentially approving the plan. Now, to ensure that we're complying with the requirement that there be no split precincts, the board needs to adjust 2 areas impacted by the Commonwealth's House of Delegates redistricting plan. And the new plan, Rockbridge, is split between House districts 36 and 37. Specifically, House District 37 now encompasses all the Natural Bridge and Buffalo districts and the majority of the Carrs Creek district, and the Goshen precinct of the Walker's Creek district is represented by Delegate Terry Austin. The remainder of the Walker's Creek district and a small portion of the Carrs Creek district and all of South River district are fully within House District 36, represented by Delegate Ronnie Campbell. The VOTEC precinct was split, and as noted, split precincts are prohibited under state election laws. A portion of the current VOTEC precinct in the Carrs Creek district, and it's generally bounded by Furs Mill Road, Maury River Road, and Alone Mill Road, and excludes the Hunter Hill area, must shift to another precinct and polling location in the Carrs Creek district. After discussion with Registrar Sheila Hall and the Electoral Board, it was recommended that voters in this area would need to shift to the Highland Bell precinct with the polling location at the Carrs Creek Volunteer Fire Department. As a result, the VOTEC precinct of the Carrs Creek district would shrink in size and population, in the current polling place, the Faith Assembly Church of God, would remain the same. These changes will ensure that voters in the VOTEC precinct and all county precincts will see only one ballot upon which to cast their votes. In summary, a total of 133 addresses with a census population of 217 people would move from VOTEC to the Highland Bell, leaving VOTEC with 502 addresses and 864 people. There's another small area impacted by the Virginia House of Delegates redistricting, and that's up in Goshen Pass. And it doesn't impact anyone. It's just a change in the line in the description. On June 13th, the board approved and advertised, and it was advertised, this change for public hearing for tonight, July 25th. To date, I have not received any public comments on that. We did include maps in the package for your consideration, in addition to the ordinance, which describes the new boundaries in written form. We're available to answer any questions that you might have, and I believe Ms. Hall and members of the board are here, or were here somewhere. Maybe they're not. I saw them earlier, but I can answer any questions that you have.
Any discussion prior to the public hearing on this? Any questions, comments from the board?
I have some comments after.
Okay. Is there anyone signed up to discuss this? Address the board.
Trying to get there.
Is there anyone online wishing to address the board on this topic?
Doesn't appear to be.
Is there any written comments that need to be read in?
Oh, sir.
Okay, then at this time, we will close the public hearing. All right, Mr. Lewis, you got some comments?
Yes, sir. The language in here about splitting districts is valid. I didn't want to interrupt the business at hand because there's nothing here that really impacts Walker's Creek other than a little bit of land where nobody lives. But what does impact Walker's Creek to me is the splitting of that local magisterial district between two house districts. To me, it defies all the logic, reason, language of splitting communities of interest. It's just flat out wrong. But I'm preaching to the people who can't change that. So I'll take it elsewhere, but I did want to get it on the record. I think makes it very difficult for citizens. While it's not a local change, it does affect them when they go to the ballot box. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Is there a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
and Chair votes yes as well. All right, next we have the Buffalo Creek Foundation doing business as Buffalo Creek Boys School, 75 Old Farm Road, Lexington, Virginia. The application for special exception permit, private school in the general residential R1 zoning district. Mr. Slayton?
Yes, sir. Bear with me here. I will share my screen. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation prior to turning the floor over. All right, this is a special exception permit to operate a private school in the residential zoning district. Again, Buffalo Creek Foundation, DBA Buffalo Creek Boys School. A few details of the property itself. The property is, the property under consideration is owned by Lexington Baptist Church, further identified as tax map number 75-4-1C. The Lexington Baptist Church tract consists of approximately 2.5 acres, and you really don't hear me say approximately too terribly much when we're talking about acreage, but due to the fact that it's a church, the parcel itself, all three parcels are outlined. I'm going to change my pointer to a laser pointer here real quick. All three properties are owned by the church itself. The property under consideration is again 75-4-1C, and it does not have acreage per tax rolls. It's just zeroed out. GIS tells us it's approximately 2.5. Should be noted that the church also owns additional 8.516 acres, and that's not approximate. That's actually per tax roll and per survey to the south and east. The property and surrounding property is located in the general residential zoning district. There is some industrial property to the rear with the quarry in the rear there, but there is a buffer of residential property here. And if you follow my pointer to the southeast there, and then going essentially due west in this area is residential, and then everything across the Old Farm Road is also residential. The property is located in the general residential, which is the R1 zoning district. Per the special exception proposal itself, per section 603.03-20 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, private schools are used by special exception in the R1 zoning district. And I grabbed the wrong presentation, but I'll read from this one. The school plans on leasing the property from the Lexington Baptist Church to utilize the property for the existing proposed school within the existing facility. On July 13th, the Planning Commission recommended approval with the following conditions. Number one, the school facility limited to existing buildings and surrounding property for outdoor activities. Number two, total number of students not to exceed 25. Number three, the school will be limited to day students only, no boarding students. Number four, the school will be limited to 4th through 10th grades. Number five, all trash will be taken directly to landfill and not collection centers or county green boxes. Number six, lighting shall be in compliance with 1303 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. And number seven, approval contingent upon Vdot, Virginia Department of Transportation, Vdot, Health Department, Department of Education, Building Department, and the Rockbridge County Office of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Management approval. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Chad Whitmer and Mr. Lee Taylor to review additional details on the project. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen real quick. And turn the floor over. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. May it please the board, Mr. Chairman, my name's Lee Taylor, the Buffalo District. This is Chad Whitmer, the headmaster, the new headmaster of Buffalo Creek Boys School, who lives in the city of Lexington. This is the third time I've appeared before this board in the last 7 years. Many of you will, or some of you will recall our first appearance when Buffalo Creek Boys School was founded, 7 years at Gray Fox Farm out in Collierstown, or on the way to Collierstown. We outgrew that facility last year and have been made a very generous offer by Lexington Baptist Church to use their facility as a transitional location. Most recently, I appeared before this board last year for approval for a special exception permit for 36 acres on Steeles Fort Road. And I know many of you will recall the details of our presentation then, which was a bit more extensive. So I will not go into a lot of background of Buffalo Creek Boys School, but will just reiterate that it is a classical Christian school, very high academic standards, and we have had really, I think, outstanding success with the students, the academic results, as well as the hands-on outdoor skills that the boys are learning. So we're very excited about continuing to proceed with the development of the property at Steeles Fort. But as all of you are aware, the untimely and tragic passing of Bobby Bergstresser has delayed our ability to move forward on that project, but we are still working forward on that with his family and plan to begin development there within the year. So in any event, we are here tonight to ask your approval for the special exception permit to allow the school to operate on Old Farm Road at a wonderful facility. Lexington Baptist Church has been very generous, as I said. They've allowed us to use I believe it's the eastern wing, the older wing of the church, the upstairs level exclusively, which allows ample classrooms. They've also got a great older chapel. And then I think it's probably the most level piece of real estate in the entire county. So they've got wonderful fields for playing ball and soccer, as all of you are aware. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I think the report that was prepared and presented by Mr. Sladen does an excellent job. And of course, I know all of you have seen the written application. So either myself or Mr. Whitman will be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions before public hearing? The only question I had was, is this a specific time period, or is it until the Steeles Fort Road is built and ready?
Well, at this point, it is intended to be for a specific period of time. We are planning to use the facility for this academic year. Since the delay in closing on the Steeles Fort property, Mr. Bergstresser was to tear down a couple of the existing buildings up there, which he got tied up with the expansion of the truck stop, and then of course was ill. Kevin, his son, is now working with a contractor to get those buildings taken down. And so my anticipation is that we will begin construction probably early next year. My guess is that if the church would permit it, will probably be there 2 years.
I don't have an issue one way or the other. It's just, I'd hate for you to have to come back again to get the same exception if it's, as long as the language, from Mr. Sladen can be put in there that it's, I don't know if there needs to be a time frame or if it's just until it's ready.
It's our understanding it actually can't be a time frame. So there's no time frame associated with this one unless this continues for a period of 2 years after they move out. Then the special exception would be null and void. that correct? Yes.
I'm sorry, repeat that last bit.
Unless, so the application itself and the proposed conditions do not have a set time frame. So the only way that the application, or excuse me, only way the special exception would become null and void is if the use discontinued for a period of 24 months or greater.
Good, thank you. Thank y'all.
I thank you very much.
Yes, sir. This time we'll open the public hearing. Is everyone signed up to speak on this matter?
Everyone signed up to speak.
All right, is there anyone online wishing to address the board?
No, sir.
And is there any written comments that need to be read in?
Yes, I do believe I have. Yes, I do have some written comments, or a written comment. Yes. This is actually for support of this one in the next application. It says, "Dear Board of Supervisors, I'm writing into support of two classical Christian schools that are seeking board approval for their special exception permit with Washington Lee, a premier liberal arts universities, as an integral part of Lexington. I'm excited to see offering liberal arts education for children grade kindergarten through 8th grade. St. George Classical and Buffalo Creek Boys School, both classical schools, introduce children to the Trivium, the foundation of liberal arts education. As far as I can tell, Lexington has not in recent history offered opportunity for families. Classical schools provide exceptional academic standards, develop sound thinkers, and inculcate moral virtues to produce ethical, strong leaders. I encourage the board to grant approval to these schools so they can operate, benefit the family to seek the standards of academic excellence for their children. Sincerely, Cheryl Nestor."
Thank you.
And that's all the written comments I have.
All right, at this time, we'll close the public hearing. Is there any further discussion by the board?
Yeah, Mr. Sladen, can you bring the conditions back up? I just got one question. Yeah, number 4, why would we want to limit the grade levels? And if so, why would they want to limit them 4 through 10? That just doesn't seem to, I mean, you usually have elementary that could go up to 5th, you have a middle that go up to 8th, but you don't have too many that, why would we want to restrict them? is my
Essentially, that
question.
may be better addressed for Mr. Taylor or Mr. Whitmer.
That's what we're offering right now.
Right, but I
And
mean,
if you,
we shouldn't-
our plan is to continue to expand. We want to offer high school. Next year, we would very likely hope that our 10th graders would stay and we would be able to offer 11th grade. So
Shouldn't we change that?
Right, because I
Now-
don't want them to have to come back because they're successful and the kids are going to go another 2
very,
years.
very good point, Mr. Lyons.
Could
Thank
we
you.
do
So-
4th through 12th? Would that?
Why wouldn't you just do K through 12? You may never do K or 12, you K first or second, but I mean, if that's an academic program.
That'd be great.
Elementary school, but whatever you guys.
I agree. But while we're on that, might that affect the number of students that you have? So we might, can we address number 2?
Based
Also-
on the facility and what the facility would really allow, I don't see that we would have more than 25 students at this location. Now, we would hope to have certainly more than that at Steele's Fort, but for now, I think 25 is sufficient.
Even going through 12? Okay.
And on the land use side, I will say on the, and that makes, that was part of the application requesting 4th through 10th grade. On the land use side, I will say that it does get into a different ballgame, if you will, once you get driving students. With that being said, obviously, y'all know Lexington Baptist Church has ample parking. There's no issues on parking or anything like that in this particular case. But that has been discussed as far as driving age students versus pickup, drop off, that type of thing.
Since I live right out there, I don't think that would be much of an issue. And since I know Mr. Taylor, I know he will set them straight if they speed.
And if they don't drive, someone has to drive them. So you're really not restricting traffic. Because I don't see them walking.
Well, they actually do. They walk and bike. I see them often.
Okay, well, that's good.
Good. Is there any other discussion on this matter? Is there a motion to approve with the change being instead of 4th through 10th grade, K through 12?
Yes, I make that motion.
All right, and a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
and chair votes yes as well. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right, next we have the St. George Classical School, 143 Oxford Lane, Lexington, Virginia. Application for special exception permit to private school in agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district. Mr. Slayton.
Yes, sir. Again, this is a private school application. This one is in an agricultural zoning district, St. George's Classical School, special exception permit. A little bit of the details of the property. The property under consideration is owned by Oxford Presbyterian Church, further identified as tax map number 72-A-29. The Oxford Presbyterian Church consists of approximately, I'm gonna do my pointer one more time, bear with me here. The property under consideration is, again, 72-A-29. It should be noted that property is 4.007 acres per tax records. Should be noted that the church owns additional 6.7 acres to the north and to the south, identified as tax map 30 and 29A to the south. Property is located in and surrounded by the agricultural and general use districts. That would be the A2 zoning district. Per section 603.20 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations, private schools are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. The applicant is St. George Classical School. The plans on leasing the property from Oxford Presbyterian to utilize the property for the proposed private school. Similar conditions as last time. I'll go ahead and read them. On July 13th, 2022, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and recommended approval of the special exception with the following conditions. Number one, the school facility limited to existing buildings and surrounding property for outdoor activities. Number two, total number of students not to exceed 20. Number three, school will be limited to day students only, no boarding students. Number four, school will be limited to K through 12th grades. Number five, all trash will be taken directly to landfill and not collection centers or county green boxes. Number six, lighting shall be in compliance with 1303 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. And number seven, approval contingent on Virginia Department of Transportation, Vdot, the Health Department, Department of Education, Building Department, and the Rockbridge County Office of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Management approval. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Reverend Dr. Eric Parker, the headmaster, I believe, of the proposed school.
Hello, good evening. It's nice to meet all of you. I'm the Reverend Dr. Eric Parker from Lexington. I'm the pastor of St. Paul's Anglican Church here in Lexington. My wife and I moved here a few years ago, and we had worked in classical Christian schools before, and we were really wanting to see one here in Rockbridge County that served both boys and girls. And we didn't see one, so it's been in the back of our mind to provide for our own children. We have three. We wanted a school that would teach Latin, a school that would teach students how to think, not just what to think, that would teach them in the classical arts, the trivium and the quadrivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, to teach them how to be persuasive, how to speak clearly, and how to master the English language and to know something of other languages as well as be adept at the sciences. And in the process, be formed in their character, be shaped into God's image more clearly by daily prayer. That's one of the things we plan to do at St. George's, is to have morning prayer and evening prayer where we sing and chant the Psalms, where the Old Testament and the New Testament are read out clearly from the King James Bible to teach them how to understand the King James Bible as well in classical English, to teach them the heritage of our fathers, our classical Western heritage that has been a method that's proven its ability with time, that has been proven over the years to produce good citizens, people who love one another and know how to love their neighbors as themselves. we're very happy to be partnering with Oxford Presbyterian Church. They are gracious to be lending their space to us. They have five classrooms and a big meeting room in their fellowship hall that will be ample enough space for us just starting out. We're going to start out with just grades K through 8, and we plan to add a grade to that each year. We're excited about this opportunity to be able to serve Rockbridge County. We think that it'll be good for our county and for our community. And we think that looking at the classical school movement across our nation, that it'll be that our school will be something that will drive and draw other parents to our county who are looking for a school of this caliber. So thank you so much for your time, and willing to hear any questions that you have to ask.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the board or discussion before we open public hearing? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone signed up to address the board?
Yes, we have one speaker signed up, Brian Steffel.
Okay. Please state your name, address, Metro District.
My name is Brian Steffel, on Cars Creek District. I'm also an elder at Oxford Presbyterian Church. Oxford Church goes back 275 years. We built the fellowship hall and the classrooms about 60 years ago, when the congregation was much bigger and much younger. We have one child regularly coming to our church on Sunday. So unfortunately, the classrooms are empty, and they have been for several years. And I just want to say that we're delighted that learned people of goodwill want to make use of this facility and have children educated in that facility. The people that built that 60 years ago would be tickled to know that it's again being used for the purpose for which it was intended. We also have the support of our neighbors. We have farmers around us, and they were all unanimous in their support. In fact, one of the families thought that they may send their children or grandchildren to this school. So I urge your approval of the petition for rezoning, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else signed up? All right. Is anyone online wishing to address the board on this issue?
No, sir.
Is there any written comments that need to be read in?
I'd just like to make the point that had the same comment from Miss Cheryl Nestor as read last time. That was for both comments. One additional comments pertaining this is from Joan G. Potter. It states, neither Charlie or I will be able to attend the meeting tonight on the school at Oxford. We would like to say we are in favor of the school and hope it will be an asset to the area. We did receive our certified letter as the adjoining owner. Thanks, Joan. So those are all the written comments, that plus addition from Ms. Nestor again.
Okay, thank you. All right, this time we will close the public hearing. Is there any further discussion, comments, questions by the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve as presented?
Actually, I'm sorry, I would bring the same logic that Dr. Lyons just used for the last one. This is 20, K-12 for 20. The last one was K-12 through 25. I guess I just wonder, the numbers are different. Would it make sense to 25, have this one be 25 as well? If those things are the same, those are the kinds of way my mind works.
Well, this one is K through 12.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
So the last one was approved as K through 12 with 25.
Oh, 25. Well, was that what you asked for, or did we restrict in any way, or was?
It's a very good question. So we were asking to limit it to 20, and we originally said K through 8, but the logic of extending it to K through 12 is so we could extend to K through 9 in the next year without having to come and request a larger number. And then, we could have 3 or 4 years before we actually reach 20. That might be the situation. But the number 20 actually came from the person who was talking to us about water treatment. They didn't, we didn't get any results on water treatment, but they were just advising us that once you reach 20, there's a different department that has to do the testing after that. So that was where that number came
An
from.
infrastructure issue.
Right.
Is that, Chris,
Yeah, and I
would
can
you
do that. I
address?
think it's Department of Drinking Water. Once you have over 25 individuals in a 60-day period, you get into the division of drinking water with the health department.
Okay.
And Chris, one of the approval by the BDOE, what is,
Virginia Department of
right,
Education.
what do they have to do with it?
It's my understanding that private schools are required to do attendance records and immunization records.
Right, but that's the requirement of the school to submit to them. The BDOE, I think it's an approval by the, they don't have any say. If you can bring it back up, I might be mistaken.
No, it says approval contingent at number 7, and I could dot. Well, no, one is Vdot, Virginia Department of Transportation. Other one's Health Department, Department of Education, Building
That's what I'm
Department.
talking about. That Department of Education wouldn't be given any approval, I don't believe, would they? What would they be approving? They have to, they have to provide some information to them.
Yes, that's my understanding that they
Right,
would
but
have.
I
to-
don't think Department of Education has to approve their school. I might be mistaken, but I really don't.
No, I
think-
don't believe you're mistaken. I think
Right,
that's correct.
So I think we could delete them from that list. Otherwise, if they have to wait for approval from an organization that doesn't approve private schools, they'll be waiting a long time, won't they? See what I'm saying?
Yes.
Instead of approval through DOE, it should be that they submit the necessary paperwork to DOE. The DOE shouldn't have any approval authority on their school. I believe is what Mr. Lyons is saying.
Yes, so that could
Yeah,
be,
that's what I'm
that could be
saying.
struck and reworded however y'all see fit.
Right, I just don't want to hold up a project for approval that's not going to come. Because
It
it's
would
not
hold up
in
the
there.
project.
Yeah. Then we need to fix the word.
Was that in the one we just approved?
Yes.
No, it wasn't in the
Yes.
first one, was it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's in all of
it
them, and it's
was.
been in the previous private schools as well.
Didn't notice it in the first one, but
I can suggest a change. Approval contingent on VDOT, Health Department, Building Department, and the Rockbridge County Office of Fire and Rescue and Emergency Management approvals and compliance with the Department of Education requirements.
yes. I think that would
That's
be-
compliance, is a better word. Thank you. Yes.
So right now, we're on St. George Classical School. Is there any other discussion or comments about that one? Is there a motion to approve with the recommended changes from Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
approve.
Yep. Okay.
All right,
I'll
a second?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
and Chair votes yes as well. Before we move on to new beginnings, should we go back to the Buffalo School and address that approval with the same language?
Yes, it was unanimous in favor, correct?
Yes.
Any one of you could make a motion to reconsider, take a vote on the motion to reconsider, and then move to adopt with the changes.
Okay.
That we talked.
So is there a motion to reconsider the Buffalo Creek Foundation?
Yes.
And a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And Chair votes yes as well. Now, is there a motion to adopt with the recommended verbiage that we just heard from Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
And a second?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. All right, now we are on to New Beginnings Christian Church doing business as Castle Christian School, 111 Bible Camp Lane, Goshen, Virginia. Application for special exception permit, private school in agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district. Mr. Slayton.
Yes, that's correct. New Beginnings Church, DBA is Castle Christian School Special Exception Permit to develop and operate a private school in the agricultural zoning district. Details on the property under consideration is owned by Grace Bible Camp Incorporated, further identified as tax map number 31-A-8A. The Grace Bible Camp tract consists of 46.81 acres. Per tax records, property is located in the agricultural and general use district. So everything, I'm going to turn to my pointer here on everything you can see, everything you can see in the aerial photo is the agricultural and general use district. That'd be the A2 zoning district. Then you get into the conservation district, which is green. It's my understanding that this is the national forest, bona fide national forest. In this area, if you follow my going clockwise, if you follow this national forest area here, national forest area here, national forest that goes on both sides of the road, and then this other tract of land is national forest. This tract of land is actually it's now called, Department of Wildlife Resources, which is the Little North Mountain Wildlife Management Area. So essentially everything you can see, the aerial photo is A2, everything in green is National Forest or Game Commission land. As far as the special exception proposal itself, per section 603.03-20 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, private schools are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. The applicant is New Beginnings Church, DBA Castle Christian School. The school plans on leasing the property from Grace Bible Camp Incorporated to utilize the property for a proposed private school. Similar to last verbatim, essentially with the last one is on July 13th, 2022, Planning Commission held its public hearing and recommended approval of special exception with the following conditions. Number one, school facility limited to existing buildings and surrounding property for outdoor activity. Number two, total number of students not to exceed 50. Number three, the school will be limited to day students only, no boarding school students. Number four, the school will be limited to K through 12th grades. Number five, all trash will be taken directly to landfill and not county collection centers or county green boxes. Number six, lighting shall be in compliance with 1303. And number seven, approval contingent upon Vdot, the Health Department, Department of Education, Building Department, and the Rockbridge Office of Fire Rescue and Emergency Management approvals. Obviously, that will be modified through this discussion. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Miss Lori Teague to have a PowerPoint presentation to review the details of the CCS application.
All right, thank you. Thank you to the board for the opportunity to share about Castle Christian tonight. It's nice to see familiar faces. I will try to stick to 5 or 10 minutes because that's what Mr. Sladen told me, and it's almost dinner time for you. Though I could talk for probably an hour about this project over the last couple of years. But let me start with Castle Christian is a mission of New Beginnings Christian Church in Fairfield. And we are operating as a DBA under their nonprofit. But we've partnered with Grace Bible Camp out at the 111 Bible Camp Lane address out in Goshen. They offered the property for us to have a home. And once we went to visit, we couldn't turn that property down. It's beautiful, and we'll do great for what we have planned. Our plan for this year is to start in August and offer kindergarten through 7th grade. Currently, I have 21 students who have enrolled and are ready to go as soon as we get approval. Tonight, we are anticipating somewhere between 25 and 30 for this first year in K through 7. I do have plenty of blank spots in there. It's kind of interesting how they all kind of fell out. With the plan in the future to be to add 1 grade level after so that our students could continue on with us from K to 12. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the curriculum. I know that you already have a packet. I'm sure you've had time to spend with that, but I did want to kind of hit the high points for you. We're going to offer reading, math, science, and social studies, along with an hour of Bible and an hour of what we're calling outdoor learning. Because of the property and because of where it's situated, there's almost 48 acres out there, along with a pond, some streams, plenty of space to do all kinds of things outdoor. Most of you are very familiar with reading, math, science, and social studies. We get most of our questions about what in the world outdoor learning is. So I did want to spend just a minute talking about that. So outdoor learning is actually just that. It's everything to do with the outdoors. whether it's outdoor experts, and we've already scheduled workshops with lots of experts in our area. Boxerwood, I've already talked to, they've come out to work on some programs that they can actually offer on our property, which is very similar to some of the features that they have at Boxerwood. So Elise was very excited to see the property. We have a fish biologist who's scheduled to come out in October. Virginia Bear Hunters Association is coming out to talk to some kids, because I have some kids that have a real interest in hunting. We have a national turkey calling champion that's coming out in the fall. Are you ready to sign up? And we have some forestry experts. We're working on just populating our calendar with lots of people to talk about all those things that make Rockbridge kind of a special place. And to have that access around our property is wonderful. Talking about outdoor skills, hiking, canoeing lessons. Currently, the camp does canoeing and kayaking lessons for camp kids during the summer. We'd be doing some of that, hanging hammocks, camp safety, camp cooking, even sports clinics, farming practices. I had some kids ask me about a chicken project. So they talked about raising chickens from eggs to eggs. So I already have some kids who are already researching how to do that, thankfully, because I don't know how to do that. We have some families who are already farmers and farming. They want to come in and work with kids. I have a beekeeper who's going to come talk as well. So we're just embracing the property out there and adding a little twist and taking full advantage of that private school flexibility that I didn't have when I was in public school. So that was the K-7 program. Once we get to high school, we have a little bit of a different vision about high school. I know from 31 years of public ed that public schools do a great job of pushing kids with AP, honors, dual enrollment courses, and we spend a lot of money in those categories. I know here in Rockbridge County, we're very proud of that CTE program over at the high school, but I still think that with a little bit more flexibility than you have in public school, what we want to do is we want to do a little bit more of that, placing kids on job sites with apprenticeship programs, giving them some job experience. So the vision is that at least our juniors and seniors would spend part of their week on a job site with somebody learning skills, and then the other part of the week doing core content, if that makes any sense. We have a little bit more flexibility than public school does with the content that we teach. So we're going to take advantage of that. But I know from experience that a lot of kids either come out and don't have a track to go, don't have any work experience, don't know where to go with that. But then those kids could also have the dual enrollment options. So we're putting a little bit of equal emphasis there that I'm not sure that you see in a lot of places. We also have a commitment to certified instructors. Our teachers, and that was a commitment from the very beginning, to have teachers that are fully licensed in Virginia, as well as an administrator who's fully licensed, and that will continue. The location, I know that you have in your packet a little bit about the location, but I wanted to pull out a little bit more and kind of show you the inside of some of those buildings, because for me, pictures make a lot more sense. That might be a little bit of an elementary background, but so here is the map that Mr. Slayton included in your packet of the property itself, and it kind of shows you the buildings that are out there. Because of what the camp can already offer, we have no plans to build anything, expand anything. It's all right there for us. We would be using the dining hall space, a building they call the Lodge, which currently houses, right now there are lots of camp bunks in there because they still have camp going on, and the chapel area. This is the chapel area. So inside there's a large auditorium where we would have, that'll be our morning gathering place, but also for parent meetings, programs, music programs. I think it's 150 to 200 people in that auditorium. It's huge and it's beautiful. The chapel also houses 2 offices. One would be the principal's office, one is a teacher workroom, and then we would have a reception area. Then downstairs, we have 2 large classrooms for kindergarten through 2nd grade is our plan to house in the chapel area itself, our little guys. This is the lodge area. This is during camp season. These are 4 rooms down and 4 rooms upstairs that are filled to the rim with bunk beds for kids. The camp does host and is going to continue to do that. We just switch out from camp mode to school mode because we're working on the off season. But those rooms, we recently repainted, redid all the flooring, brought it up lighter for classrooms, but it also made for some really nice bunk bedrooms this summer. We would put our 3rd grade through 12th grade would fit in here because we are going to have to combine some classes. So we're going to have combination classes for a little bit until we get a little bit larger. Those rooms have full bathrooms in them. There are 2 bathrooms in every room. This is the dining hall. We would not be preparing our own meals in the dining hall, but this is where we would have dinner. And this is a little bit of the outdoor space. There are streams, ponds, some hiking trails. Stream and pond are great. The pond is like 1.5 acres. Kids currently swim in that pond during church camp, which is kind of fun to watch with some big slides that are on there. But Elise Sheffield was very excited about some neat water things that we could do while we're out there. And then this is the parking area that we would utilize. I know that Mr. Sladen also included areas there because he wanted to see just how big that parking was. And basically that is it. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have about the school because I know you've had plenty of time to read your packet.
Does the board have any questions, comments at this time?
No, I was able to drive out there last night and it is a beautiful site.
I'm in the fall. It's even more beautiful.
Thank you, Ms. T.
Thank you.
Is anyone signed? All right, this time we'll open up the public hearing. Is anyone signed up to speak?
First is Brandon Clung, followed by Bailey T.
Please state your name, Astro District.
Brandon McClung and South River District. I am the pastor of New Beginnings Christian Church, and I just wanted to, as you all consider it, first of all, thank you all for your time and your consideration in all this. It's been a journey to get to you, but I just wanted to give you all the heart as you consider it. At the very beginning of this, there's been a lot of turmoil between churches and the public schools and things going on. Our heart from the beginning of this, it has not been about any kind of spite. We have nothing but, we want to show nothing but respect and love for all the officials in public school. They have a tough job and they do a lot for the kids here. So that is not what this was born from. This was in the works long before. We focused on 2 things from the very beginning. Was offering parents a choice to put their children in a place where God is the focus. And what we wanted to do is not just have that where it was good on the spiritual side, but we wanted top-notch quality education. That was the prime thing. And so Ms. Teague was a huge answer to prayer when she put in the phone call. It was amazing to see her and to watch her now go to work and put in all the time and the effort that she has. She has been absolutely wonderful. And so that's really this entire school, the heartbeat of it is just to give parents a choice and a place where they can send their kids where God is first. The culture is inherently biblical, built on biblical values, and the education is top-notch, built around that prepares them to go out into the world and into their lives when they leave their education. So thank you all.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop sharing screen, but next up is Bailey Teague, followed by Bruce Teague. Bear with me, I'm gonna stop sharing screen.
And I failed to, during the other public comment, we tried to limit people to 3 minutes. If you could keep your comments on pace there. Please state your name and Metro District for us.
Yes, sir. My name is Bailey Teague and I'm in the South River District and I would like to yield my time to Bryce Teague. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bryce Teague, Walkers Creek District. I live on Bratton's Run. My property joins Grace Bible Camp and is right next to the driveway where you pull in. I'm here to express my support for Castle Christian School. Our community is in need of a Christian-based school with certified teachers that will treat every student with respect, no matter if they are college bound or not. I graduated Rockbridge County High School in 2012, and I can tell you that was not the case when I was there. Students that were not interested in college were simply written off. There was zero value placed on vocational or technical education. If you weren't knocking on Harvard's door, you were an afterthought. In response to one of my friends telling a guidance counselor that he wasn't interested in college, the counselor asked him, quote, "What are you going to do? Flip burgers for the rest of your life?" She didn't ask him if he liked to fix cars or work with his hands, and didn't even ask him how his classes in auto tech were going. He was abandoned. I can say with 100% certainty this will not happen at CCS. I know that Castle Christian will create a learning environment where students will grow intellectually as well as spiritually, and will have all the tools they need to be successful in their future, whether that be at college, in the trades, or elsewhere in the workforce. I'm aware that there have been some concerns raised about hunting on some of the national forests surrounding the camp potentially being affected by the camp property becoming a school zone and the implication that has on gun rights. That is an unfortunate and unintended consequence of starting this school, but as I understand it, private property remains unaffected by the federal and state laws regarding gun-free school zones. When it comes to our hunting rights, we must think about the future. In the special exemption application submitted by CCS, it says, quote, "The promotion and focus on outdoor learning will imbue our students with the importance of conservation in Rockbridge County. This would certainly serve to create good stewards of our natural resources for future generations," end quote. As an avid hunter who primarily hunts public land, this is extremely important to me. I cannot tell you a single time in all my years attending public school right here in Rockbridge County where I ever even heard the word conservation. If the children of today do not understand the vital role that our public land and the North American model of conservation play in our environment and the effect it has on our hunting rights, then it will be lost. The only reason we have national forests to begin with is because some people over 100 years ago understood this and made an effort to protect it, thus allowing future generations the opportunity to use these beautiful lands. CCS will do its part to make sure their students understand and value our public lands and our right to hunt, fish, and otherwise recreate there. I'll leave you with a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. "Defenders of the short-sighted men who in their greed and selfishness will, if permitted, rob our country of half its charm by their reckless extermination of all useful and beautiful wild things, sometimes seek to champion them by saying, 'The game belongs to the people.' So it does, and not merely to the people now alive, but to the unborn people still in the womb of time." Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is JD Go, followed by Scott Reese.
Y'all doing this evening? JD Go, South River. I had a nice little speech written up, but as you can tell, Mrs. Teague and Mr. McClung just blew me out of the water the first time that I talked to them. When I found out they had 7th grade available, sign us up. My son is now signed up to enroll to go to the school. They're great people and they're working really hard. Thanks for y'all's consideration.
Thank you. Pastor Scott Reese, Walker's Creek. I'm the president of the board of Grace Bible Camp. We're thrilled to death to have the opportunity to possibly host this group of people. I've been in the office, the principal's office, all over again, way too much recently. And I want to say I am thrilled with a 30-year veteran blue ribbon principal for this school. It's unheard of. Award-winning teachers. It just can't get better than this. As a pastor now going on 21 years in Goshen, I can tell you our kids daggone need this. They need it. They need a school like this to help them, to guide them, to give them some place close to home in our area. And I know kids are coming from all over, but close to home for them so that we can help them grow up to be great young men and great young women. I look at the campus there at Grace Bible Camp, where I've been now there 10 years. In fact, I was a camper in 74. And I look at that campus now and I'm amazed that we have the opportunity to extend it past summer camp. It tickles me to death. As a former educator, 2-time teacher of the year and former college president, I can tell you this without any exceptions whatsoever. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to enjoy our times. And I got to tell you, this principal also has shown me the organization level of her is off the charts. So we look for great success. We look for a lot of fun. And so far, this has been an enjoyable experience for us all the way through, and we're looking forward to doing it again. Thank you all very much for your time and consideration in the matter. Thank you. Is anyone else signed up?
That's all signed up.
there anyone online wishing to address the board on this topic?
No, sir.
Is there any written comments that need to be read in? Is there anyone in attendance who didn't have an opportunity to sign up, which is address the board? Okay, at this point, we will close the public hearing. Is there any discussion by board members? Any comments? Is there a motion to approve as presented with the change in the language that Ms. Huffman has provided us with the earlier applications?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. All right, let's see here. We are down to, is there any additional board comment, any comments you have, Mr. Spencer? Ms. Huffman, anything you have for us?
I think that's it.
All right, next meeting will be August 8th, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay.
You do have, we are working for a special meeting that we will advertise for first next week, August 1st.
We have the time, location, anything, or?
We'll advertise it.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else from the board, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
sorry, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. Thank everyone for their attendance and comments. I think it's gonna be the Horse Center, August 1st. I think so. I will not be there.